Hey everyone, it's Amy from Artful Artsy Amy again, and I'm here to show you how to use Soap Resist to make beautiful artwork. So a few years ago, right at 2 years ago, I first mentioned the Soap Resist method here on the blog. You can see here's the original post, and I showed some pictures and I showed some finished results taken with what looks like probably a camera phone. And I still get a lot of questions about the method. And I gave you some more pictures on a later post of some work my students had done. These are fairly large pieces. And I still got even more questions. And I've tried to answer them. I gave my steps right here, as you can see. Right? And then if you go down even further on this post, you can see there's a little worksheet right here. If you click on that, it has a little JPEG that you can actually right-click, and you can save that to your computer to use if you would like. A nice little planning sheet. It's mostly for professional development for art teachers, but students could use it as well. And again, I believe this post, if you wanted to go back and look at it, is from March of 2011. What came to my attention was recently this post on It Is Art Day. And she learned something at her conference, and it's really similar to the Soap Resist method that I do. And you can see these are Soap Resist made by other art teachers at this particular conference, and it's really beautiful work. So I used sort of my original concepts about Soap Resist and a little bit of information I got from this wonderful post on It Is Art Day, and I wanted to show you what exactly the Soap Resist method looks like in a classroom. Here's our first step in Soap Resist. You want to sketch and plan. Soap Resist is a method that really yields itself to a lot of different art history topics. I've used it to teach Van Gogh. I've used it to teach Georgia O'Keeffe. Most recently, I used it to teach about the Kuna people who make molas. I've also seen it taught to teach abstract art, specifically projects about Picasso. But you're sort of getting that there's a pretty wide gamut of things that you can use Soap Resist. So you want to come up with a sketch. We're going to pretend that I've already done that, okay? Our second step is we want to draw with soap on black paper. A lot of times if you hear something written about Soap Resist, it'll tell you to use those little soaps from hotels. But to be honest, I have been buying Ivory soap and just cutting it into chunks and letting my students use this, and it is so inexpensive. Ivory soap, you can buy 3 bars for $1 and cut it into fourths. So it's a really nice economical way to use soap in the classroom. And you also want to use black paper. In the past, I've been using Canson papers. They don't bleed. But the issue is that Canson paper is a kind of expensive product to be using in a classroom, especially if you're going to use this with elementary school students. So I started using construction paper, and the only issue you're going to have with that is your construction paper is eventually going to bleed in the course of the project. So I'd stopped doing Soap Resist for a while because I thought maybe it just cost too much money for me. And what I really liked was on It Is Art Day, the teacher there had started using roofing felt. So I want to show you what roofing felt looks like. This is a piece of roofing felt, and you can see in my document camera, it really just looks like a piece of construction paper. I think the best way to describe it to you is to use the words my students use. They call it leather paper. To them, it feels like a rough, thin piece of leather. And actually what this is it is the felt that is put on your roof before shingles are attached. It's heavy. It just feels like paper to me. I don't really know if it's felt or not, and I believe it probably has like a little bit of tar pushed into it, but you can see I can rub my hands on it. I'm not getting anything off. There's no strange smell, and the most magnificent thing of all is I went to my local hardware store and I bought a roll of it that, I mean, I can't even tell you how many yards it has. I haven't even made a dent, and I have cut huge pieces for 60 students now, and the whole roll was $60. So it's a great, great, great affordable thing to use in your classroom. So, getting back to our step 2, we want to draw with soap on our black paper. So let's pretend I just wanted to do a simple heart. I have my black paper. I'm going to take my bar of soap. I'm not using a pencil, and you don't want your students to use pencil. And you want to go ahead and draw with your soap. Okay? Now your students, because they're afraid of making mistakes, are going to tend to do things like this. They'll draw real light. The issue with that is that's not going to work for Soap Resist. You want it to be heavy and thick. Okay, and I even tell them, go over it a few times, don't be afraid. And so once you have your design down, this would of course be a very basic thing, right? Now you're ready to color. Alright? So when you color, you have three options of materials. You can use colored pencils, you can use oil pastels, and you can use acrylic paints. When I use colored pencils for this project, I use Prismacolors because they have a nice high oil content. I've also used the Prismacolor art sticks. You want students to build up a heavy layer of color, okay? So oil pastels could also work well, alright? And the third, which is the one I'm taking from It Is Art Day, is to use acrylic paints. Essentially, you want things that aren't going to wash away. You're eventually going to put this piece in the sink, so you want things that are going to stay on your paper. So let's go ahead and look at what the process of applying color to our Soap Resist looks like. So here you have one of my 8th grade students, and he is applying acrylic paint to his mola, and he did this in the Soap Resist style. You can see he's carefully painting around the soap. The trick here is you don't want to go over your soap. When you use colored pencils, if you go over the soap a little bit, it won't matter because when you wash it in the sink, that colored pencil that went over the soap will wash away. But when you use the acrylic paints, if you go over the soap, it's not as likely that the soap will wash that acrylic paint away. So you sort of have to think about your materials. Soap will trump colored pencils, but acrylic paint will trump soap. So sort of that idea. Now once you're done applying color, it's time to wash and dry your artwork. It is important that your work is dry, so if you used acrylic paint, you want to give it, I would say, overnight for your materials to dry. And here we have one of my students' artworks going into the sink. You could see the heavy soap on there. And I just have maybe 2 to 3 inches of water in the sink. I just put my hand in it. You do want to knock off the soap pretty well. If you leave any soap on there, it'll just dry again and be a little gray. You can always wash it again. The great thing about this process is you could always add more colored pencil or more paint and then wash it again. So just take a few seconds, wash it all away. Carefully pull it out of the sink so you don't get too messy. And there you are. That's what the finished artwork looks like for Soap Resist. So step 5 in our process would be to display. So just to review, excuse me, I'm a little bit of a perfectionist there. There we are. You want to sketch and plan for your Soap Resist. You want to draw with soap on your black paper with a nice heavy thick line. You want to add color, and it's important to remember that soap is more powerful than colored pencils, but acrylic paint is more powerful than soap. Step 4, you want to wash and dry. So that's all for me with Soap Resist. I hope that this gives you a little bit of insight into a really cool method to use in the classroom. You can look across my blog by using the search term Soap Resist to see several posts about the process in my classroom and to view more artworks. You can also go to itisartday.blogspot.com to view her information about Soap Resist. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day.